President Obama is getting a major boost after announcing he would stop deportation for 800,000 young illegal immigrants. A new Latino decision poll finds 49% are more enthusiastic after Friday's landmark decision, a 27-point jump from January. And the decision has put some pressure on Romney, who 5 times dodged questions on what he'd do with the president's new immigration policy.
But would you repeal this?
Well, it would be overtaken by events, if you will, by virtue of my putting in place a long-term solution.
I won't keep on about this, but just to make sure I understand, would you leave this in place while you worked out a long-term solution, or would you just repeal it?
We'll look at that. We'll look at that setting as we reach that. But my anticipation is I'd come into office and say we need to get this done on a long-term basis, not this kind of a stopgap measure.
I'm joined now by Republican strategist and former Huckabee campaign manager Chip Saltzman, and by Goldie Taylor, managing editor of the opinion blog, The Goldie Taylor Project. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you think, Chip, that Mitt Romney missed an opportunity to show some leadership? Does this kind of, I don't know, reinforce the Etch-a-Sketch knock that was used by his Republican rivals during the primary? I mean, shouldn't he be able to answer that question in a very straightforward manner? Here's what I'm going to do as president.
Yeah, I think he'll do that, but I think he had a great opportunity on Sunday to do it. I think we'll probably hear it on Tuesday or Wednesday. And this is an issue that he had to deal with a lot as governor. Look, at the end of the day, the federal government's lack of leadership on this issue has cost the states, because the states have to deal with this every day, because the states are the one using health care dollars and education dollars to take care of the illegal immigration. So I know Governor Romney's probably got the answer he wants. He probably just wasn't sure that's what he wanted to say it on Sunday. I'm not sure. You know, as you know, Chris, I'm not involved in the Romney campaign. I try to, obviously, I'm for him. I support him. I think he'd be a much better president than Barack Obama. But I think this is a great opportunity, because this is an issue, especially the president's decision 140 days out. You know, you look at these decisions that are political and policy. And this was probably not bad politics, because it changed the discussion of the last couple of weeks, which was bad for Barack Obama. And now you have one Sunday show where Governor Romney doesn't quite get the answer that he probably should or wants to get out, and then now that's the conversation we're having.
Well, so Republicans are accusing the president of playing politics with this decision. Let me play for you a little clip of John McCain on Meet the Press.
Obviously a way to divert attention from very bad news the president's had for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I think that's very clear. What I would like to see is Marco Rubio and others are coming up, both Democrats and Republicans, with a DREAM Act that I think we could negotiate on.
It wasn't about politics. First of all, this was a decision made by the Homeland Security Department to allow them the discretion to focus our enforcement on criminals, people who pose danger to communities.
Goldie, was this a blatantly political move?
At 141 days out, every move is a blatantly political move, and I don't care if the person in the White House is Democrat or Republican. And I think, you know, if you're in the White House for these last 3.5 years, you do have to think and look forward to how do you keep the job and keep doing the job if you think it's the right job to do. And so I think it is political, but on the other hand, I also think it's the right thing to do. Look, if Republicans had, gotten together with this president and the Democratic Congress on the DREAM Act and gotten it passed, that was a comprehensive solution that answered those people who are in this country through no fault of their own, albeit illegally, and giving them their chance at the American dream. Look, I served side by side with young men and women who did not have their citizenship in this country, but served in the same armed forces that I did, and I believe that they deserved it. Unfortunately, we are giving them their citizenship posthumously after they have been killed in battle, and that is most unfortunate. And so I do think that it is political, but I think that the Republicans had an opportunity back when the DREAM Act was on the table to pass it and make it law and make us a community of compassionate people.
Yeah, and even if, Chip, there is politics involved in this decision, I think Goldie makes a good point about everything's political at this point to some extent or another.
Especially at this point. No
Does
question.
that matter? If you're a college student who's graduating and wants to find a job and can make a contribution, I mean, is that going to matter? Look at what we just saw in that new poll.
Yeah, no, there's no question that if you're a young Latino that's here illegally and you hear about this, you're going to be more enthusiastic to vote for the president. I think what's important here is when you look at this policy is at the end of the day, when you start out by saying illegal immigrants and then we're going to give them some kind of special status or special favor, I think that gets most people very upset. And I think you're right. There's a lot of solutions out there that make sense, but I think the first and foremost, you've got to say this. Let's do it the legal way. Let's go back to step one, which is they broke into this country. I've always said this. If you knock on my door and ask me to come in, I'm probably going to invite you in and give you a glass of lemonade. But if you break in my back window, you and I are going to have a much different discussion.
Yeah,
and I think that's where we got to start out with illegal immigration.
And I guess the question is, there is another whole question about whether or not this is the best way to deal with this. I think the way that Michael Steele put it this morning on Morning Joe, Goldie, was something like, well, this is a Band-Aid on a very big wound. Does he have at least some point there?
He does. He does have a point. This is a Band-Aid on a very, very large wound, but I'm not about to indict a 5-year-old for breaking into anything, let alone this country. I think that we as a nation have got to come together with a comprehensive solution, yes, to secure the border, but at the end of the day, we're at a net loss on the border. People are no longer coming to this country because we're in the midst of the worst economic downturn of modern times. But I think, what's really happening here is that we're hurting ourselves. Right here in Georgia, we have crops that are rotting in the fields because we don't have the kind of labor necessary to do the picking. This is reminiscent of the same kind of discrimination towards migrant workers through the 1915 to 1970 when African Americans moved north and stopped picking the crops out of Florida, and those fruits rotted in the trees. That's what's happening here in Georgia. We have got to come together with a better solution that doesn't hurt states like this one economically.
Goldie Taylor, Chip Saltzman, great conversation. Thanks to both of you.